Every office worker has done this. You open a Word doc or a PDF and you scroll. Page 2, page 3, page 4, squinting, hunting for the one number you actually need. Maybe it's a payment date. Maybe it's a liability cap. Maybe it's just a quantity on a purchase order. You find it, you type it into a spreadsheet by hand, and you move on with your day. We've been doing that for 40 years, and we've just quietly agreed to call it the way documents work. It isn't. It's the way we've let documents work. And today, I want to change how you see every document that crosses your desk. Because once you see this, you can't unsee it. Here's the promise of this episode. By the end of the next 30 minutes, you're going to have a simple mental model. I call it a spectrum for looking at any document in your business and knowing exactly how to restructure it. Restructure it so a human can fill it in easily, so a computer can read it perfectly, and so the other side of a negotiation can look at it and know in 10 seconds what's actually on the table, instead of 10 minutes of hunting through paragraphs. And I want to say up front what this episode is not. This is not a buy more software episode. This is not an AI pitch. This is a design the paper differently episode. Because here's the thing almost nobody says out loud. The fix happens before automation, not instead of it. You can throw the fanciest AI extraction tool in the world at a badly designed document, and you will still get guesses. Good guesses, maybe, but guesses. Today, we're talking about how to stop needing the guess in the first place. So let's start with the core problem, because once you see this clearly, everything else in this episode is just detail. A document is actually two things smashed together into one object. It's information, and it's the container for that information. And here's the historical accident. We have spent an entire century optimizing the container. Fonts, margins, letterhead, prose style, tone, legal phrasing. Meanwhile, we have spent almost no time optimizing the information itself for retrieval. That's backwards. And it's the whole problem in one sentence. Think about it this way. Every document is quietly doing two completely different jobs at once. Job A is to persuade, explain, contextualize, and protect. That's the narrative, the legal reasoning, the relationship building tone. Job B is to record a discrete fact, a date, a dollar amount, a name, a choice between 2 or 3 options. Job B is what automation does. Job A is what humans need, at least the first time they read something. And the problem is, we've bundled these two jobs into a single wall of text, which means a computer, or a tired employee at 4:45 on a Friday, has to do job B by wading through job A. Take an invoice, take an NDA, take a purchase order, take a lease. In every single one of these, ask yourself, where does the data, the actual data, live? And how much prose surrounds it? Almost always, the data is between 2% of the words on the page. But it's 100% of what anyone downstream actually needs. 98% of the document exists to support, protect, or contextualize that 2%. And yet we make everyone wade through all of it every single time to find that 2%. Now let's put a number on what that actually costs a business, because it's annoying isn't a strong enough reason to fix it. Here's the real cost. There's a time cost, manual rekeying, double data entry, what I like to call human OCR, where a person's actual job function is just being a slow, expensive scanner. There's an error cost, transcription mistakes, a misread handwritten number, a misinterpreted clause that gets keyed in wrong. There's a dispute cost. 2 parties reading the exact same paragraph and each one sincerely believing it says something different. Because natural language allows that. There's an audit cost. Compliance teams that literally cannot sample or verify at scale because everything they need is buried inside prose that has to be read start to finish every time. And there's a speed cost. Negotiation cycles that stretch into weeks because nobody can quickly answer the simple question, what actually changed between draft 3 and draft 4? So that's the disease. Now let's talk about how we caught it, because understanding the history here isn't trivia. It explains exactly why this is fixable now, in a way it genuinely wasn't 20 years ago. Let's walk through 5 eras, And I want you to notice something as we go. Every single era added a new tool for reading messy documents. Almost no era asked the document itself to be less messy in the first place. Era 1, the typewriter and paper era. In this era, documents were physically linear because paper is linear. You can only read top to bottom, one page after another, so any structure at all had to be expressed inside the prose itself. Things like Section 4.2, payment terms. There was no other layer available to hold structure, so legal and business writing built an entire professional culture around prose as structure. And here's the important part. That culture massively outlived the physical constraint that originally created it. Era 2, the word processor, in the 80s and 90s. This is the pivotal moment. So let's slow down here. Word processing did not fix the underlying problem. It supercharged the container while leaving the data exactly as trapped before. Suddenly, anyone could reformat, reflow, insert new clauses, change fonts, restructure a page in 30 seconds. What we got was infinite flexibility in presentation and zero progress on structure of content. Word processors made documents more beautiful and more variable at the exact same time. And beauty and variability are not the same thing as clarity. In fact, they often work against it. Era 3, the template era. Businesses noticed the variability problem and tried to solve it with templates, which was a genuinely good instinct, just a half-finished one. A template constrains the shell, the headers, the clause numbering, the standard boilerplate, but it almost never constrains the variables, the actual dollar figure, the date, the party name, the option that got chosen. So we ended up with thousands of standardized contracts that are standardized everywhere, except exactly the parts that matter most for extraction. Era 4, the PDF era. PDF locked in the visual fidelity of a document forever, which was genuinely the goal. Don't let the formatting shift when someone else opens the file. But as a side effect of optimizing for looks identical on every printer, we got, almost accidentally, the single hardest common format to pull data back out of. Era 5, the OCR and AI era, which is now. And I want to be honest and slightly contrarian here, because this is the part people get wrong. AI and OCR can now read almost any document and make a very good guess at the data inside it. That is genuinely useful technology. But say this sentence to yourself. AI reading a badly structured document is still guessing. It is a very, very good guess. It is still a guess. And every guess carries an error rate. At scale, thousands of documents a month. That error rate becomes disputes, becomes compliance failures, becomes rework. The fix isn't a smarter reader. The fix is a clearer source document in the first place. So here's where that history lands us. Every era added a new tool to read messy documents better. Almost no era asked the document to be less messy to begin with. That gap, that's exactly where the rest of this episode lives. Okay, here's the intellectual core of this whole episode. I want you to picture a dial with 5 positions on it, running left to right, from maximum flexibility to maximum structure. Position 1 is free prose, pure narrative, no headers, no fields, no consistent order. Think of an old-fashioned personal letter or an unstructured email where 2 people are negotiating terms back and forth in paragraph form. This is maximum flexibility and minimum extractability. It's fine for a one-off conversation. It is terrible at any kind of scale. Position 2 is structured prose. Numbered sections, defined terms, consistent headings. Section 4, payment terms. This is where about 80% of contracts and formal business documents live today. It's better than free prose, but the data itself is still embedded inside sentences. A computer or a person still has to read in order to extract net 30 days versus net 45 days. Structure exists at the level of the outline. It doesn't exist at the level of the fact. Position 3 is the hybrid cover sheet. And this is the pivot point of the entire episode, so pay attention here. You put a data cover page on top of the narrative document. All of the variable, negotiable, decision-based information, dates, dollar amounts, party names, chosen options, renewal terms, liability caps, lives in a structured block, a table, or a form, right there on page 1. The narrative body still exists underneath it, still carries the legal reasoning and the boilerplate, but it now refers back to the defined terms on the cover sheet, instead of restating all of it in prose, buried on page 7. Position 4 is form first. Here, the form isn't a cover page anymore. It is the primary document. Fields, checkboxes, drop-down menus with a finite set of options, structured tables for anything repeatable, like line items or milestone dates. Prose is now the exception, only appearing in specifically marked notes or special terms boxes, clearly bounded so everyone, human or machine, knows this box is where free text lives, and everything outside this box is structured. Position 5 is pure structured data. There's no document at all in the traditional sense. It's a data record, a database row, an API payload, a spreadsheet. And a document only gets generated from it when a human actually needs something to read. The document becomes an output, not an input. Now here's the teaching point I want you to walk away with, because it's the thesis of this entire episode. You do not need every document in your business to hit position 5. Most legal and business documents should live at position 3 or position 4. The goal was never to eliminate prose. Prose is genuinely, legitimately good at nuance, at intent, at legal protection. The goal is to stop making prose carry data that it has always been bad at carrying. Constrain what should be constrained. Leave free what actually needs to be free. Now, I want to spend some real time on the objection I hear constantly, especially from people in legal roles, because it's the biggest myth standing between most businesses and this fix. The myth sounds like this: legal language has to be infinitely variable because every deal is unique. Here's the correction. Almost no deal is unique in its structure. What's actually unique is usually a small, countable set of variables. The price, the term length, whether there's an auto renewal, yes or no, the termination notice period, the liability cap, which is just a number, the governing jurisdiction, which is a pick list of states or countries, not an open-ended question, the indemnification carve-outs, which are really a checklist of which standard provisions apply to this deal and which don't. So here's the reframe I want you to take with you. Legal nuance lives in how a clause gets written. Once, well, by a lawyer. It does not need to live in how many different ways a number can be typed onto a page. A dollar amount is a dollar amount, no matter how it's phrased. A date is a date. A choice between a 30, 60, or 90-day notice period is a finite 3-option field. It was never a paragraph. We just kept writing it like one. Here's a concrete example, and you'll recognize this instantly if you've ever touched an NDA. Whether the agreement is mutual or one-way, the term length, the governing law. These are almost always chosen from a small, finite set of options. And yet, in a structured prose document, position 2 on our dial, those are 4 separate decisions, buried inside 4 separate paragraphs, each one requiring a full, careful read, just to find out what was decided. Move those same 4 decisions to a cover sheet, and they become 4 lines you can read in 4 seconds. So once you actually believe that most unique business language is really just a small set of repeatable decisions dressed up in sentence form, the next question becomes completely practical. How do you go build this? Let's get into 6 principles you can start applying this week. Principle 1. Separate terms from text. Every document has the stuff that changes and the stuff that doesn't. Physically separate them. Put the changeable terms in a table, a form, or a clearly defined terms block. Let the unchanging legal or procedural language reference those terms, instead of restating them in new words every single time. Principle 2. Convert choices into finite fields, not sentences. Anywhere a decision is genuinely being made from a limited set of options, payment terms, renewal type, jurisdiction, service tier, delivery method, represent it as a checkbox, a dropdown, or a labeled field. not a handwritten or freely typed sentence. Here's a rule of thumb you can use immediately. If you can imagine listing every valid answer on one hand, it should be a field, not a paragraph. Principle 3, put variables on page 1. Whatever a reviewer, a counterparty, or an automated system needs first, dates, amounts, names, chosen options, should be visible without reading past the first page. This one change, on its own, cuts review time dramatically. It lets every stakeholder immediately answer, what actually changed? What am I agreeing to? Without reading the whole document front to back. Principle 4, bound your free text. I am not telling you to eliminate prose entirely. That's neither possible nor even desirable. Instead, fence it in. Label a clearly marked additional terms or special notes section as the one deliberate, bounded place where free text is allowed. That tells every downstream reader, human or automated, exactly what to expect. Structured data everywhere else, and surprises should only ever show up here. Principle 5, make the negotiable visibly different from the non-negotiable. This one is hugely underrated. Visually distinguish boilerplate, the standard legal protection language that's almost never negotiated, from the actual negotiable deal terms. Different section, different formatting, different location on the page. This alone is a genuine gift to whoever's on the other side of a negotiation. You're telling them exactly where to spend their attention, which speeds up the entire back and forth, because nobody has to read an entire contract just to find the 5% that's actually on the table. Principle 6, design for the data's second life. Before you finalize any document template, ask yourself, after this thing is signed or submitted, who needs which fact out of it and for what? Finance needs the amount and the due date. Legal needs the term and the renewal date. Operations needs the delivery schedule. Design your structured fields around those downstream needs, not just around what looks complete on the page in the moment you're drafting it. A document is almost never read just once. It gets referenced dozens of times after it's signed. Structure it for its whole life cycle, not just its first read. And I want to be explicit about who actually benefits from all of this, because it's not just one team. The requester filling out the document benefits. Fewer open-ended questions. A clear form instead of a blank page. Faster completion. Fewer follow-up emails asking, wait, what do you mean by this clause? The reviewer processing the document benefits. No more hunting through paragraphs for a number. A glance at page 1 tells them everything they need. The counterparty negotiating the document benefits. They can immediately see what's actually being proposed versus standard boilerplate. So their red line focuses on the 5% that's genuinely negotiable, instead of rereading the 95% that never changes deal to deal. And the system's downstream benefit. Extraction becomes reliable pattern matching against known fields, instead of probabilistic guessing against a wall of free text. Let me give voice to the pushback you'll actually get and answer it directly, because I want you to be ready for it in the room. This isn't how professional documents are supposed to look. Professional was never a synonym for maximally prose. A term sheet, a cap table, an insurance declarations page, all highly structured, all completely professional. All trusted in genuinely high-stakes settings. Structure signals rigor. It doesn't signal sloppiness. Our lawyers won't want to give up control of the language. They don't have to. The boilerplate language stays exactly as lawyer drafted and lawyer reviewed as it's always been. Only the variable, decision-based content moves into structured fields. The lawyer still writes the clause once, perfectly. It just gets referenced from then on, instead of retyped slightly differently every single time. Some deals really are unusual and need custom language. Completely agreed. And that's exactly what the bounded special terms box from Principle 4 is for. The claim was never zero prose ever. The claim is that prose should be the deliberate exception, not the accidental default. And here's the thought I want to leave that section on. None of this is anti-legal language. It's pro-putting legal language where it actually belongs. Protecting the deal. instead of also making it carry the deal's basic facts, which it has never once been good at. So here's your homework, and I want it to be one specific action, not a vague resolution. This week, pick one document your team uses constantly: an intake form, an NDA, a purchase order, an onboarding packet. Print it out or pull it up on screen and do exactly one thing. Circle every piece of information in it that changes from one instance to the next. Then ask yourself for each circled item, could this be a field instead of a sentence? You will be shocked how often the answer is yes. And that single exercise is the entire first step toward turning your documents into data. Documents aren't going away, and neither is nuance, or law, or negotiation. But most of what we currently trap inside long paragraphs was never actually prose to begin with. It was data, wearing a paragraph as a disguise. Take off that disguise. That's it for this episode of Automate Office Work. Until next time, happy automating.